There are countless things the Dragon Ball community loves to argue about. Who is stronger between Kid Buu and Buhan? How about Vegito and Gogeta? Which Super Saiyan forms are the best and which ones are overrated? But there is one debate that is arguably more prevalent than any other. I am of course talking about the debate surrounding what is and isn't canon. To quickly catch up those of you who may be unaware, the idea of something being canon colloquially refers to whether or not it actually happened within the main continuity of whatever story is being discussed. For years, one of the main places this topic gets debated within our community has been in discussions surrounding Dragon Ball GT. It's no secret that a large portion of the Dragon Ball fanbase claims to hate GT, and more often than not they cite it being non-canon as their reason. However, the canon discussion isn't just limited to GT. Anyone who has been following Dragon Ball Super since it started back in 2015 is aware of the fact that the anime and the manga, while similar in many aspects, tell their stories in vastly different ways. This has sparked debates about which version of Super is the true canon. In reality, the truth of the matter isn't so black and white. You see, Dragon Ball isn't a franchise that has one singular canon. It's a franchise that is made up of multiple distinct continuities. Today I'm going to be breaking down multiple different continuities within the Dragon Ball franchise. More specifically, I'm going to be focusing on the three most important ones: the Toriyama manga continuity, the original anime continuity, and the modern anime continuity. Hopefully by the end you will begin to realize that stressing about whether or not something is canon isn't worth the headache. Before we begin, I just want to quickly announce that on Tuesday the 22nd at around 6 p.m. I'm going to be hosting my first ever YouTube live stream right here on this channel. We are going to be starting a playthrough of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. This will mark the beginning of my return to streaming, and I'll be live multiple times a week going forward. Hope to see you there. Now back to the video. Keep in mind that this is just the continuities as I have come to best understand them. There has never been any official source laying out the specifics of each continuity. Everything I provide here is my own evidence-based interpretation. With that said, let's begin with the continuity that started it all, the Toriyama manga continuity. This continuity simply contains all of the events that happen between Chapter 1 where Goku meets Bulma and Chapter 519 where Goku flies off with Oob. It also contains Jaco the Galactic Patrolman, a prequel manga set in the Dragon Ball universe that was written and drawn by Toriyama himself. None of the movies or specials tie into this continuity, and neither does Dragon Ball GT. You could try to argue that Bardock, the father of Goku, is canon to this continuity because we see Frieza remember Bardock during the Namek saga. However, Jaco the Galactic Patrolman contains a special chapter known as Dragon Ball Minus, which contradicts the events of the special. Plus, Frieza remembering Bardock only confirms that him confronting Frieza is canon to the manga. It doesn't confirm that any other events from the special are canon. As for the History of Trunks special, Toriyama created his own manga retelling called Trunks the Story, which should take priority over the anime special when talking about the manga continuity. At this point, you are probably wondering how Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, and Dragon Ball Super connect to this continuity. We will cover that once we start talking about Super as a whole. Let's move on to the continuity that most English-speaking fans were introduced to this franchise with. I'm of course talking about the original anime continuity. This continuity contains the events of everything we saw happen in both the original Dragon Ball anime as well as Dragon Ball Z. Yes, this includes all of the filler. I know some people watching this are probably going to have a knee-jerk negative reaction to me saying that, but it's the truth. Remember, this discussion is about how Dragon Ball is multiple distinct continuities. Me saying that filler is canon to the anime doesn't mean it's canon to the manga. Within the context of the story the anime is telling, it doesn't make sense to pretend that certain episodes or scenes didn't actually happen. Allow me to draw your attention to this quote from Toriyama himself. He said, "Since an adventure in the manga corresponds to approximately 10 minutes of animation, and an episode is on average 30 minutes, the whole Dragon Ball saga would have passed by very quickly. The animation team has therefore inserted original stories. I admire what they have done. It's great work. Dragon Ball is anime and manga. This segues perfectly into my next point about the original anime continuity. And I know that people who were upset with what I just said about filler are going to be even more upset about this. Guys, I don't know how to tell you this, but Dragon Ball GT is canon to the original anime continuity. Rather than try to convince you myself, allow me to share yet another quote from Toriyama. I left the Dragon Ball anime completely up to the anime staff, story and all. That was Dragon Ball GT. Dragon Ball GT is a grand side story of the original Dragon Ball, and it'll make me happy for us to watch it and enjoy it together. Toriyama makes it clear that he gave his full graces to Toei Animation to continue the story of their anime continuity without him. Many fans like to spread misinformation and say that Toei forced GT out the door despite Toriyama wanting Dragon Ball to be over, but this just isn't true. In reality, not only did Toriyama approve of GT, but he was a fan of it. It just isn't canon to his original manga. Dragon Ball GT is no different than any other anime-only content. Some of you may be thinking, but wait, Dragon Ball GT has that one scene where Cooler appears. What about the Dragon Fist, and Vegeta already knowing fusion? Doesn't this automatically mean that it can't be canon to the original anime? The answer is actually no, because believe it or not, a few of the movies are canon to the original anime continuity as well. The keywords there being a few. Not every movie fits in the canon. The only movies that are canon to the anime continuity are Dead Zone, Cooler's Revenge, and arguably Wrath of the Dragon. You may be asking how we know these specific movies are anime canon, and it's because of Daizenshu 7. Daizenshu 7 places both Dead Zone and Cooler's Revenge on the timeline, but completely ignores all of the other movies. The decision to include these two specific movies while excluding all of the other ones has to have been done for a reason. Wrath of the Dragon is not included on the timeline, but the reason I say it's arguably anime canon despite this is because it doesn't contradict anything else in the continuity. It would also explain why Goku knows the Dragon Fist in GT. However, Goku knowing the Dragon Fist could just be explained by saying Goku still learned the move off screen. The same goes for Vegeta already knowing the Fusion Dance during the Shadow Dragon saga. We know the events of Fusion Reborn can't be anime canon due to the movie contradicting the events of the Buu saga, but Vegeta could have still learned the dance off screen. At this point, you've probably realized that this continuity appears to be incompatible with Dragon Ball Super, and you would be correct about that. The original anime continuity has no connection to Dragon Ball Super, but you need to keep in mind that there are two different anime continuities. Let's start talking about the modern anime continuity. This continuity contains the events of Dragon Ball Kai, as well as the Dragon Ball Super anime and movies. As you probably noticed, this continuity seemingly doesn't include any events prior to the Saiyan saga, which obviously makes no sense. To solve this issue, I personally fill in the blank by treating Toriyama's manga up until the end of the 23rd World Tournament arc as canon to this continuity. This makes the modern anime continuity an offshoot of the Toriyama manga continuity. One thing that needs to be noted is that there is something in Kai the Final Chapters that contradicts Super, and that's the villains watching the battle with Kid Buu from Hell. This is the rare instance where I choose to just pretend a scene didn't happen for the sake of making things make sense. I just chalk it up to Toei's overall laziness in regards to the Kai Buu saga. If it really bothers you, you can just say Kai the Final Chapters isn't part of this continuity, and fill in the blank with Toriyama's manga instead. Other than that, this continuity is pretty self-explanatory. The only thing that needs to be clarified is the status of Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. Since these movies were both readapted into the Dragon Ball Super anime, I consider these movies to be non-canon to the modern anime continuity. However, it's important to note that the scripts of these movies were written by Toriyama himself. Hey guys, Editing Ben here. I made a mistake. Toriyama didn't write the scripts. That was Yusuke Watanabe. Toriyama was just heavily involved. More involved than he was with the Super anime. My point still stands, but keep this correction in mind. Alright, sorry for interrupting. This makes any lore provided by these movies canon as long as the anime retelling doesn't contradict it. For example, in Battle of Gods, Shenron tells us the story of the original Super Saiyan God fighting the evil Saiyans on planet Vegeta. This lore was excluded from the anime version, but since it's still a Toriyama idea and isn't contradicted anywhere in the anime, I still treat it as canon to this continuity. Now then, it's time to talk about the Dragon Ball Super manga. There are two feasible locations that you could place the Super manga. The first option is to say that it's part of the Toriyama manga continuity. The second option is to say that it branches off of the modern anime continuity after the Buu saga, and runs parallel to the Super anime. Both options can easily make sense, so it's really up to you to decide which way you want to think about it. Personally, I prefer to think of the DBS manga as a branch off of the modern anime continuity. This is for one main reason. If you include the DBS manga as part of the Toriyama manga continuity, then that leaves the Battle of Gods and Resurrection F movies in a state of homelessness. This is because the DBS manga readapts Battle of Gods just like the anime did, and Resurrection F has its own separate manga adaptation which was made by Toyotaro. This just doesn't feel right to me since Toriyama himself wrote the script for each of the movies. They're both deserving of a place in one of the main continuities. However, if you say that the DBS manga is a branch off of the modern anime continuity, then you can easily fit both Battle of Gods and Resurrection F into the Toriyama manga continuity. This makes sense because, again, Toriyama wrote the scripts. But like I said previously, you can realistically put the DBS manga in either continuity, as long as you are willing to accept the idea of the Battle of Gods and Resurrection F movies not being canon to any main continuity. The last thing we need to talk about really quickly is the Yo Son Goku and His Friends Return special. Truth be told, this special can easily exist in all of the continuities. Dragon Ball Super Broly acknowledged the existence of Tarble, which supports it being canon to the modern anime continuity. The Battle of Gods movie also acknowledged the existence of Tarble, which potentially supports it being canon to the Toriyama manga continuity as well, depending on where you place the DBS manga. Plus, the special was made before Dragon Ball Kai was even a thing, and Takao Koyama wrote the screenplay, which means it was likely made with the original anime continuity in mind. There's really no point in stressing about the continuity placement of this special. I just treat it as canon to all three. To quickly sum everything up, Dragon Ball is a franchise that can be broken up into three main continuities. The Toriyama manga continuity, which covers the original manga, Jacko the Galactic Patrolman, Battle of Gods, and Resurrection F. The original anime continuity, which covers the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z anime, including all filler and specials, Dead Zone, Cooler's Revenge, possibly Wrath of the Dragon, and Dragon Ball GT. Lastly, the modern anime continuity, which covers Dragon Ball Kai and Dragon Ball Kai The Final Chapters, and then branches off into both the Dragon Ball Super anime and the Dragon Ball Super manga. Alternatively, you can place the Super manga in the Toriyama manga continuity in the place of Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. Yo Son Goku is canon to all continuities. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like and hitting that subscribe button. Use the links below to follow me on my other socials. Have a great rest of your day, and take care.